Last week, we got into accountability. This week, we're going to get into process. And before I do it, I want to let you know that I had a similar session with folks in the Leader Lab 2 weeks ago where we talked about simplifying process. And we're going to get right into that. If you're interested in the Leader Lab, if you want to build leadership together, build your leadership skills, help build with others, and be around a group of people who know that leadership is how we move forward, come check out the Leader Lab. It might just be for you. We are running a program through February 24th where the first month is $14, and then we'll go back to our regular pricing, which is $90 per month. Let's get into process. So process for the sake of process sucks. There are a lot of people who do not engage in the operating environment inside the business, meaning they're not actually out there doing the work, who will design systems and processes that do not serve a given purpose. I would like to help you simplify your approach to building processes for self. And then what's cool about it is you can start to look at the processes that you're a part of or you're involved in and start to deconstruct them and figure out, hey, is there a better way to do this? From my perspective, there are 3 types of processes. I am not educated in process. I'm a practitioner of process. So there might be some people from a design perspective who might say that this is not correct, but go with me. First process, linear process. Now, a linear process can be meandering. It can move around. Think of a game board, the game of life. When you pick up the game of life and you first start playing, you move from the beginning and you want to get all the way to the end, which is, I think, sell your house, or I forget, retirement, but I think that's how the game ends. But if you work backwards, you're always picking up new things. You never actually turn the car around and go backward. You continue to move forward. You might meander a little bit. So you could have a linear process that goes A, B, C, D, E all the way through. Or that process could take the shape of going around and moving a little bit and meandering and moving forward, but still be linear. Well, what's a linear process? A linear process means that I have to go through each of these individual steps. And if I miss on one of those steps, I'm going to increase a lot of risk. The likelihood of the process working gets reduced. You can simplify this process by eliminating steps. You might be able to eliminate these middle steps. When thinking about this, ask yourself, am I working through a linear process? It's more like working through the game of life. And if I do each of the steps in the right order, will I achieve the result? If so, then that's a good linear process. That's one type of process. The second type of process is a linear process that might require restarting at different points in time. You might actually go backward. So think of a process that looks something like this. Linear process, again, we'll do 6 steps, but when I make it to the 3rd step, if something fails, I have to start again. If I make it to the 4th step and something fails, I have to go back to the 3rd step. If I make it to the 5th step and something fails, I might need to go back to the 2nd or 1st step. So this is more like the game Chutes and Ladders. When thinking about a sales process for forecasting, that's typically what will end up happening. If you have clearly defined stages or gates, you'll get a better understanding of forecast predictability based on probability of sale. It's a little bit deep, but there's this kind of linear process that has loops to it. Loops. Those loops can provide some feedback. They help you go back to the beginning. They help you start working through the thing again. Learning can be a double loop feedback process. Okay. So we've got a linear process. We've got a looping process that incorporates linear work. And then the next type of process is we have one of these processes that just continues to repeat itself. So this is a closed loop process. Now, some of these closed loop processes might actually open up if you continue to wash, rinse, repeat, and do the same thing over and over again and don't take in additional data. Think of this like the game of Monopoly. If you're playing the game of Monopoly, you start at go, you go to jail, you're in that free space, you're in free parking, and then that last corner, if you hit on that last corner, you have to go directly to jail. So these are looping processes where every time you go around the board, you hit the same kind of bases. This could look like a baseball diamond. The most common or familiar looping process like this is the OODA loop. John Boyd rolled it out. It's observe, orient, decide, act. Now, people will argue that's not a closed loop. And I would say, you're right, it's not a closed loop. And the reason why it's not a closed loop is because after you act, you re-observe, and now you're in a different place, likely. You reorient yourself based on that observation, you make a decision and take action. And the whole OODA loop process was all driven primarily by the idea of, I want to accelerate decision-making and action throughout the process. And if you want to go to a podcast where I talk about this with Dave Burke, check out episode 85, Wayback Machine, of the Find My Catalyst podcast. Back then it was still called the Catalyst Sell podcast. So we've got 3 different process types that are happening inside your business at any point in time. When they come together, you start to create this integrated system. What I'm going to challenge you to do is look at each of these processes that happen, whether inside your business, inside your home, or that you follow through and self, and say, is it a linear process where I meander? I don't have to go back to the beginning. Is it one where if something fails, I have to go back to the beginning and work through each of those steps again? Or is it the same process, watch, rinse, repeat, that loops over and over and over again, and ideally starts to make progress? And one of the things I really like about these looping processes, these simple processes, and I will talk inside organizations around this being your approach to work, your sales rep approach, your approach to getting things done. If I know what step 1, step 2, step 3, step 4 are, and then I go right back to step 1, I will continue to make progress. So I could go 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, 1, 2, 3, 4, and you start to see this progress up into the right. So process simplified. There's always a process going on. Sometimes it happens organically. You just kind of go through the motions. Sometimes it happens by design. You design with specific intent. I believe that you can design for serendipity. You can design for things to happen, design for an experience. When you design your customer journey, you can have design serendipity at each of these individual gates. When you do your forecasting process, more like chutes and ladders, you can design for a specific predictable result. And when you have to go backward, you take that feedback and determine what needs to change. And if you use a looping process, whether it's a closed loop or more of a spiral like we drew up here, you start to say, if I do the same things over and over and over again, I will achieve the same results. That's ultimately what process does for you. When you pull these things together and you have the right process being applied to the right challenge inside your business, your people will be more efficient. You will be more efficient. Your organization will be more efficient. You'll have better impact on your customers, and you will start achieving better results. So let's simplify process. First, identify, are we talking about game of life? Are we talking about chutes and ladders? Are we talking about Monopoly? Apply the right process and know that over time, some of these things might change, especially as you're going through some of the testing and iterating that happens inside your business. If you know somebody who would find this valuable, please share it with them. Point them to Learn, Think, Act. The core reason I do these simple videos every Sunday and share them every Sunday is because I want you to learn something, think a bit differently about it and how it applies to things you already know. Heck, we've all played board games. At least I hope you've played board games before in your life. And then take action, do things, do the next step. Then look at your feedback loop and determine, do I want to take the next step by making progress, or do I need to iterate and adjust? If you are interested in joining the Leader Lab, check us out. It's $14 starting now through February 24th for the first month. And then we'll move back to the $90 per month standard that we have out there. I'd love to see you in the program. We're going to help change the world when it comes to building leadership of self, help people move forward, help you move forward, and ultimately make outsized impact as you think different, do different, and ultimately are or be different. Thank you.